Taylor Rapp here from the LA Rams. Shout out to Steve Taylor, the real sports guy, and the honorary Ram. When Steve's talks sports, you better listen. Thanks, Steve from the Rams, for your continued support and love. We are taking it all the way this year, but you already know that. Go Rams.
It's Albert Prince Bell, 21-0 checking in, and you rocking with Keeping It Real Sports. And we're gonna be on a lot of times. I love the platform. Check in, it's the new wave. Like, follow, subscribe, and do all that good stuff.
Oh, welcome into the Keeping It Real Sports podcast. I am the real sports guy, Steve Taylor. He is the Sandman, Andy Sanzada. Hey, Sandman, it's got another Saturday morning. We are talking NFL, nothing but NFL. But before we even get started, Sandman, I'd like to go back, and we reported last week that the Big Ten's contract was going to start in 2024 with the Big Three networks. It's actually going to start in 2023. So we like to clear that up. Just a small thing. But saying, man, we got so much going on. And the one thing that I really want to talk about that we got coming up next week is this. The college football kickoff show. We can't wait. Make sure you tune in. It's going to be real big. Me and the Sandman got some special things planned for you. Can't wait for that, Sandman. How's it going?
Steve, I'm doing really well, but you know what? Let's focus on this week because we got a lot to get into, and we better start, my man.
Man, we do got so much to go, man, to go, and let's get with it. Let's do what we call the quick hitters. Quick hitters.
All right, Steve, the biggest story of the week has to be this without question. We've got it as breaking news because to us it still is breaking news. The NFLPA finally came to an agreement as far as Deshaun Watson and his suspension is concerned. He received 11 games and a $5 million fine. On top of that, he's going to lose another $600,000 in game checks. Steve, I think this is something that had to be done, and I'm glad it's over with, but it may not be over with. We'll get into that as we get into the Browns preview later in our NFL show. But we got to keep things moving here today.
Yeah, man. Hey, man, let's look at the NFL preseason scoreboard from just last night's games, where the Patriots, they win 20-10 over the Carolina Panthers. Thursday night, the Bears, they up in the Seahawks 27-11. The Texans outlast the Rams last night 24-20, and the Packers, they double up the Saints 20-10. That's last night's Keeping It Real preseason scoreboard.
All right, Steve, we got to keep things moving. What a great we had some really good news come out this week, and this is it right here. Dickie B is cancer-free, baby. Hallelujah. Let's praise the Lord for that one. We're so happy for him, and can't wait to get him back on the air this year, assuming that I'm sure he's going to want to come back. But whether or not he does, we're just so happy to hear this. Praise the Lord, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And finally, Andy, man, something happened in Cincinnati that has never happened in the world of sports, man. Hey, the Williams sisters actually lose in the first round of the tournament. Both of them.
Yeah.
Man, it's history, man. Hey,
it's history,
man.
And you know what else is history? Their tennis careers. That's why they're going to retire. But,
But here we go. We got the week's news. The sports news is coming up. We call it. Oh, by the way. Oh, by the way.
All right, Steve, get us kicked off. What are we going to start with?
Well, we're going to start with LeBron James signed a 2-year, $97 million deal. And then let's just go between the numbers. We're talking about $44,000 a game for the year, $542,000 per game. Look, let's break it down per quarter. $135,000 a quarter. How about $11,000 a minute? No. $188 a second. Oh, by the way, LeBron James did pretty good for himself.
I think with that contract signing, you can put it to bed that he's not coming back to Cleveland. All right. By the way, Steve, we talked about it a couple weeks ago. We thought that the Islanders were going to sign Nazem Kadri. Well, guess what? He said, I don't think so, and he goes up north to Calgary. Calgary signs Kadri to a 7-year, $49 million contract. Oh, by the way, Islanders fans, you were not the favorite.
Hey, oh, by the way, UFC 278 kicks off tonight, but that's not all. We've got the Rage by the Red Sea, Usyk and Joshua, the World Heavyweight Championship. It's a big night in boxing. I smell it between the gloves. Oh, by the way.
Hey, listen, I watched a feature last night on the MMA live show about Usman, saying he could be the best pound-per-pound MMA fighter existing right now and potentially the best ever. Well, he's going to have to win that fight to solidify that kind of background, right?
He's beaten once, but it was 11 years ago, but he's beaten once. So,
hey, you know what? I think it's going to be a great fight. Hey, Steve, by the way, the Cleveland Guardians are in first place. And did you know that they have the best record in the entire American League since July 1st? They are 18-5 in that timeline. Here's the reason why. This is your MVP, folks. Forget the home runs and the RBIs that Aaron Judge is putting up. This guy is the only reason that the Guardians are where they are. He leads the American League with 37 doubles. He added to his RBI totals with another home run last night. Oh, by the way, the Guardians might actually make the playoffs.
Is this coming from the man who said that he wouldn't follow the Guardians and not call the Cleveland baseball team the Guardians?
Yeah, well.
Oh, by the way, I'm just saying.
Oh, by the way, I'm a Cleveland fan, so you knew I was going to come around eventually, right? You had to figure that out.
Let's hurry it up.
All right, Steve, this weekend, to hurry up, we're going to take a look at some training camp observations.
Ooh-wee.
All right.
Man.
Let's start with
but let's set this up, Andy, because we're going to look at the observations and we're going to see whether we like this or we don't like this. Okay? So we're going to do it like a YouTube video. Do I like or do I don't like? And I'm going to use a little bit of Flint, but had a little bit of coaching from my sister, Patty, your wife. Yeah. She said, look, we got to use Pastor Cal. So, man, I got to rock with Pastor Cal. So let's rock this, man. Give me the first one.
All right, the first one, Steve. Did the Steelers get it right again and just do what they needed to do in the draft, especially at the quarterback position?
Hey, I like it. And I'm going to tell you why, Andy. People don't understand at the quarterback position, Kenny Pickett has been in that stadium before. He's looked like he's been there and he's done that. And what I want you to watch tonight, when they play the Jacksonville Jaguars, he's going to get some run with the ones. And I'm telling you, even though we have Mitch Trubisky scouted as a number one quarterback, couldn't be for long. May not be for long. Keep an eye on that.
All right, let's get to the next one here. We've got another training camp observation coming out of your team in the Los Angeles Rams. No OBJ, no problem.
You know what? I like it. And let me tell you why. Lance McCutcheon last week caught 5 passes for 82 yards. He had 2 touchdowns, and he caught a 2-point conversion. Sean McVay said, look, we need to see more out of this kid. So he goes out against Darryl Stingley Jr. last night, and he puts up 97 yards on him. Okay. Now look, The Rams played their second team last night against primarily the first team from the Texans. I mean, that Texans defense was getting after it. Lance McCutcheon was putting up those numbers. Hey, look, watch out for Lance McCutcheon. I like it.
All right, let's go to our next story. It's going to be trouble in paradise, big concerns with the play calling out of New England. Now, they did win last night, Steve, but overall, what are your thoughts on this?
I'm a little uncomfortable, man. I'm a little uncomfortable. Andy, they don't look like, it's like they not seem to quite get it together. No one knows what to do, and you see them all looking at each other, and it's not smooth, and that's got grease fire written all over.
It does, but at the same time, as long as Belichick's there, you got to pay attention to New England, okay? Speaking of paying attention, how about this one? Out of Green Bay, Aaron Rodgers and Jordan Love calling out their receivers already.
Okay, when I first looked at this, I was a little uncomfortable. Okay. I didn't like it. But then, Andy, I turned on the R22, and I saw it. And I saw exactly what they were talking about. They were talking about wide receivers not finishing their routes because they've installed a RAM system, which is a concept of combination routes, which could go 6 different ways. And if you turn the wrong way, the ball is going a different way. It results in an interception. What I like was the fact that they did call him out, and I like it because now what you saw last night was the receiver dive. Touchdown. What you saw was Winfrey making those plays that they needed them to make, calling out those wide receivers, making them responsible. Really like it.
And you know what? Jordan Love had a better game because of it.
He looked good, man. He looked good. He made the throws.
Yeah. All right. Our last one, Steve. Training camp, Dallas. McCarthy downplaying the mistakes. He continues to downplay the mistakes. Steve, how can you downplay the mistakes?
I'm uncomfortable. The last time we saw you, Mike McCarthy and the Dallas Cowboys was in the playoffs. You had 14 penalties in that game, okay? And then the next time we see you, you have 17 penalties. And then, oh, by the way, you've led the league in penalties under Mike McCarthy, 266 penalties under Mike McCarthy. And you want to downplay it? See, 2 things are happening in Dallas. Either you're coaching it or you're allowing it. Now, which one is it, Mike McCarthy? You need to figure this out.
I think if they don't, Sean Payton's on his way to Dallas in the offseason. No question about that. All right, Steve, that's going to do it for the Hurry Up. I think we've got some storylines to continue our NFL-themed show today.
Hey, let's do it.
All right, well, we have to start here in Cleveland, right? I mean, this is the storyline now that the suspension for Watson has been announced. And should the Browns pursue Jimmy Garoppolo, or do they ride with Jacoby Brissett? Now, everybody in Cleveland, Steve, wants Garoppolo to happen. But you made a very good point about why it should not happen when we were talking about the show in our pre-production meeting the other day. So do explain, my friend.
Look, it makes more sense for Jacoby Brissett because Jacoby Brissett, he at least have a similar style of skill set as Deshaun Watson. By bringing in Jimmy Garoppolo, you're totally bringing in a different style playbook. And let's just say it out loud. You bring in Garoppolo now, and you've got a week and a half, 2 weeks to get him up to speed, to get him ready to actually make a playoff run for the first 11 games. And oh, by the way, you're only going to play for 11 games because Deshaun's coming back then. You ain't know when the hell you're going to let your $230 million man sit on the bench. Right, so why would you bring in Jimmy Garoppolo, give up all of that draft capital to bring him in and disrupt your franchise even more? Come on, Cleveland, say it out loud, man.
It's all about culture, Steve. You know, and they continue to make the wrong decisions, right? So I wouldn't be surprised if he's here. I'll just say that. Speaking of the AFC North, we're going to talk about the quarterbacks in a little bit, but let's start with one of the best quarterbacks in the entire league and one of the best quarterbacks in the Hall of Fame being on the same page.
Yeah, absolutely. Man, Steve Young comes out and he says that the Ravens are misusing Lamar Jackson, and they're saying He said that the Ravens offense won't let Lamar be a dynamic passing threat a la Patrick Mahomes. He's saying it's a total misuse of talent. What does he mean by that? Remember, when he first came into the league, he was deemed a one-trick pony, a running quarterback. Well, the 49ers under Bill Walsh allowed him to be a passing quarterback. What he's saying is Harbaugh and company is not allowing Jackson to be that passing quarterback that can be dynamic, get chunks of yards makes a good point.
And Steve, all along, Lamar has been telling everybody, I'm a passing quarterback first. I will run if I have to, but I'm a passing quarterback first.
Dude want to hide you.
All right. Well, we're going to look at the AFC West in our preview this week. Mm-hmm. But here's a big piece of the puzzle for the Los Angeles Chargers as they signed Derwin James to a record deal of $76.5 million. That means he's the highest paid safety in the NFL, and that also means listen, Steve, this guy's special. We talked about Jalen Ramsey being maybe the best safety. I would think that this guy's a 1A or a 2. I mean, he's worth every penny, and I think he's going to be a key cog in the Chargers playoff push this year and for many years to come.
Well, he is a safety, and that's the difference, that he takes and he quarterbacks the back end of that defense.
Mm-hmm. All right, and then the last one we've got here, a break for the Jets, I should say. Zach Wilson in his preseason debut last week went down with the same knee injury, Steve, but it's only a 2 to 4 week timeline with a partial tear and a bruise. Looks like Joe Flacco is going to hold the ship down for the most part. And, with the improvements they've made, maybe Flacco can help them win a few games. And when Wilson comes back, the Jets are not too bad as far as where they are in the standings. It depends on their schedule, which we've looked at earlier. But this is a huge break for them and for us because we had him as a breakout player last week as well.
Yeah, absolutely, man. It's great for Zach Wilson to come in, man. He's just got, a little cleanup job, man. The kid will be back. They'll be ready to rock.
All right, speaking of ready to rock, I think it's time to rock with our AFC North quarterback rankings.
Let's do it.
All right, you talked about Kenny Pickett possibly winning the starting job in Pittsburgh, but we're going to make these rankings assuming that's not going to happen just yet. So we've got Mitch Trubisky last in the division. These are his numbers overall. Steve, those aren't bad. Those aren't bad stats with Chicago. That's the reason they brought him in to compete for the starting quarterback position. He just doesn't turn the ball over. Only 8 interceptions. But he did have a problem with fumbles, even though I said he doesn't turn the ball over. Can Trubisky be the guy, or is the pressure of the hometown quarterback going to be too much for him?
Look at, he's got a great quarterback rating. The thing about Mitch Trubisky, we know what we have in-house. What we don't know is about Kenny Pickett. We kind of said that last week. We definitely don't know about Kenny Pickett. Kenny Pickett looks the part. Kenny Pickett definitely looks the part, man. And what these Steelers are doing with drafting, this is what I meant when we did our AFC North breakdown, when I said the difference between Cleveland. Maybe Cleveland has more talent per se, but I trust Mike Tomlin, and I trust the Pittsburgh, brainwave. They make the right decisions, man. Kenny Pickett is another one.
All right, well, because he's not suspended for the whole season, we are going to include Deshaun Watson in this preview. These were his numbers in Houston. I don't know if those are $230 million numbers, Steve, but you can see what all the hype is about and why the Browns did what they did from a football standpoint. I want to clarify that from a football standpoint.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, just look at the numbers speaks for itself. Men lie, women lie, numbers never lie. I mean, the dude threw for almost 5,000 yards, 33 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. Look at his QB rating, 112.4. People, that spells $230 million.
Well, and he was almost MVP that year, too, so let's not forget that either. All right, and then you would talk about Lamar Jackson earlier. He has to be number 2 in our rankings because of what the Bengals did last year, and we'll get to that here shortly. Right. But, Steve, these numbers, what are they waiting on? Just pay the man.
Yeah, just pay the man. It's funny because you said in the last slide that Deshaun Watson goes for almost 5,000 yards and almost won the MVP that year. Well, this dude didn't win the MVP that year. Okay, he did win the MVP. I mean, again, what Lamar does, you can't measure.
That's right.
You know, you got guys that you fit into the system, and you hear that he's a system quarterback. Well, Lamar is the damn system.
Yeah, great point. And number one has to be Joe Burrow, right? I mean, he took the Bengals to the playoffs, all the way to the Super Bowl last year. Those are pretty impressive numbers as well, Steve. He was in the discussion for MVP last year. Now, he did have emergency appendectomy surgery this offseason, but I don't think that's going to impact him at all.
Man, and that was a different kind of surgery, man. And even he admitted that it was a different kind of surgery. Joe ain't back, man, to normal yet, man, but he did throw on 7-on-7s this week. So he's starting to kind of round in, and he's starting to trend up to being ready for that week 1 kickoff. But, yeah, he's definitely the best in that division.
All right, so let's summarize the AFC North. Overall, we've got Joe Burrow at 5. We've got Lamar Jackson at 7. Deshaun Watson at 11. And that is based on what he did in Houston. We want to clarify that. And Trubisky at 28. Trubisky has a chance to improve. But, you know, we kind of him and hawed where Burrow should be, but I think 5's a good spot. Lamar Jackson can't seem to get his team further along in the playoffs, Steve. That's why we had to put Burrow ahead of Lamar Jackson.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, at last time we saw him, he was playing in the Super Bowl. I mean, he was getting wrapped up by Aaron Donald, but he was there. You know, you can't win the game if you ain't in the game.
All right. And speaking of that, let's get to our previews. I think we're going to take a look at the AFC West first this week. This will conclude our NFL previews now as we close out with these last 2 divisions. Our Keeping It Real NFL previews continue. This week we'll look at the AFC West. In 4th place, we've got the Los Angeles Chargers coming in with a record of 8-9. The final wildcard spot came down to the final game of the season between the Chargers and the Raiders last season. The Chargers had a disappointing ending, losing that game and not allowing their franchise quarterback Justin Herbert an opportunity to play in a playoff game. They made one of the biggest splashes of the offseason in trading for star linebacker and edge rusher Khalil Mack, and they signed Pro Bowl cornerback J.C. Jackson to shore up the secondary. The Chargers also believe they strengthened their offense in the draft, adding offensive guard Zion Johnson and speedster Isaiah Spiller at running back. But offense alone will not win in the NFL, and they did not address their biggest issue last season, which was stopping the run. The lack of defensive line depth up front, along with a gauntlet of a finish to their schedule, closing the season against the Dolphins, Titans, Colts, Rams, and Broncos, will most likely keep them out of the playoffs again. The Chargers in 4th place at 8-9. That brings us to our 3rd place team in our preview, the Denver Broncos. The Broncos have had 11 starting quarterbacks since Peyton Manning retired. That changed instantaneously when they made the biggest trade of the offseason in the NFL and brought Russell Wilson over from Seattle. The pressure will be on Wilson and new head coach Nathaniel Hackett, who comes over from the Green Bay Packers and working with Aaron Rodgers to return the Broncos to the playoffs for the first time since they won Super Bowl 50. Wilson will also have weapons like Cortland Sutton and Jerry Jeudy, who after returning from ACL surgery in 2021, did not score a single touchdown last season. The running game will also help the offense with the 1-2 punch of Javonte Williams and Melvin Gordon, who combined for nearly 2,000 rushing yards in 2021. Bradley Chubb solidifies their defense up front, and they have one of the deepest secondaries in the NFL, but that still will not be enough to get back to the playoffs. The Broncos fall short at 9-8 in 3rd place. All the other experts are picking the Raiders to finish last in the West, not us. This team is dangerous on both offense and defense, and here's why. Let's start with adding the best receiver in the NFL in Devontae Adams to reunite with his college teammate and Pro Bowl quarterback Derek Carr, and one of the best pass rushers in the NFL in Chandler Jones to coincide with Max Crosby, who's had 25 sacks in the last 3 seasons. Not only that, how about their new brain trust in general manager Dave Ziegler, who replaces Mike Mayock, and Josh McDaniels to replace John Gruden. Did we also mention they have one of the best athletes and pure tight ends in football in Darren Waller, and one of the most efficient route runners in the league in Hunter Renfrow. Some people are worried the defense will miss coordinator Gus Bradley, but new defensive coordinator Patrick Graham will use Crosby and Jones even more in his base 3-4 scheme. The Raiders do have one of the toughest schedules to finish the season, playing the Chargers, Rams, Patriots, Steelers, 49ers, and Chiefs, but 4 of those 6 games are at home, which is why they will win the wild card again and be a threat in the playoffs. And that brings us to our first place team, the Kansas City Chiefs. We've got them at 12-5. Their Chiefs fans nearly had a nervous breakdown when they found out that star wide receiver Tyreek Hill was traded to the Dolphins, but GM Brett Veach felt his contract was hemorrhaging their ability to improve in other areas, so he was able to get 5 draft picks to restock the team within the deal. They still have Travis Kelce, and they replaced Hill with Marquez Valdes-Scantling and Juju Smith-Schuster. They also have one of the most prolific offensive lines in the league and a solid backfield to make the play-action passing game even more dangerous. The Chiefs' defense ranked 5th in the league at pressuring the quarterback, but only led to the 4th fewest sacks in the NFL with 31. They lost 3 starters in the secondary in Tyrann Mathieu and corners Javarius Ward and Mike Hughes. But as long as Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid are still there, then the Chiefs are still a threat to win the AFC West and go back to the Super Bowl in the AFC. There you have it, the Keeping It Real Sports AFC West preview.
Great job, Andy.
All right, Steve, we got one more to look at. Now it's time for your division, my friend. Let's look at the NFC West.
Let's do it.
As we continue our Keeping It Real Sports NFL preview, it's time to take a look at the NFC West. In 4th place, it'll be the Seattle Seahawks. Baker Mayfield, Jimmy Garoppolo, and Jordan Love were among the names that everyone else in the NFL thought the Seahawks would pursue to replace the Mount Rainier-sized hole that trading Russell Wilson created. But not Pete Carroll and John Schneider. They want to see what they can do with Drew Lock, Geno Smith, or Jacob Eason. On top of that, they shockingly released All-Pro linebacker Bobby Wagner, who immediately signed with the Rams. Outside of re-signing DK Metcalf to a 3-year, $72 million extension, there really isn't anything else to be excited about if you're a Seahawks fan. Pete Carroll turned 70 this year, and his old-school approach to coaching might be past its prime. Seattle will be hard-pressed to win even 4 games, but if they somehow get solid quarterback play, then they will make us look like fools. But we don't see that happening. The Seahawks in 4th place at 4-13. In 3rd place, it'll be the San Francisco 49ers at 7-10, 1 win away from a trip to the Super Bowl, and yet the 49ers are willing to move on already from Jimmy Garoppolo for what they feel is their franchise quarterback of the future and what will now be the present in Trey Lance. Lance is the type of quarterback that head coach Kyle Shanahan drools over. He has the size, speed, and arm strength to run any play from Shanahan's Bible of offense. It doesn't hurt to have 2 weapons like Deebo Samuel and George Kittle, who combined for 2,700 total yards and 20 touchdowns last season. The biggest question for the 49ers will be the offensive line now that center Alex Mack has retired. The 49ers ranked 3rd in total defense last season, but they had a league-high 21 pass interference penalties and allowed the 5th highest completion percentage. They still have one of the elite pass rushers in the NFL in Nick Bosa, who had a career-high 15.5 sacks last season. But the 49ers lost most of their offensive coaching staff since Mike McDaniel left and took the Dolphins' job. That combination with basically a rookie quarterback in Trey Lance is why we feel the 49ers will miss the playoffs this season. But if Lance can live up to the hype, they could be right back in the NFC Championship again. Maybe next year. 49ers finish at 7-10. In 2nd place, it'll be the Arizona Cardinals. The Cardinals are coming off their first playoff appearance in 6 years in 2021. Because of this type of success, GM Steve Keim chose not to go on a spending frenzy in free agency this offseason. Instead, he signed franchise quarterback Kyler Murray to a 5-year, $230.5 million extension right before the start of training camp. They also restored a big part of their core group by bringing back tight end Zach Ertz, running back James Conner, and wide receiver A.J. Green, but they lost edge rusher Chandler Jones, who went to the Raiders, and receiver Christian Kirk, who signed with Jacksonville. However, they replaced Kirk by acquiring Marquise Hollywood Brown from the Ravens to play opposite DeAndre Hopkins and Green. Hopkins will serve a 6-game suspension to start the season for violating the league's PED policy. They still have a strong defensive unit led up front by the Hall of Famer J.J. Watt and 2 studs at linebacker in Zaven Collins and Isaiah Simmons. Kyler Murray might have the most pressure of any quarterback in the NFL since he was given that extension, but the weapons around him and a coach who's willing to allow him to call his own plays will overshadow the Hopkins suspension and help the Cardinals earn a wild card spot and go back to the playoffs. And that brings us to the first place team, the defending Super Bowl champion Los Angeles Rams. We've got them at 12-5. The Rams found what had been missing for years in a franchise quarterback when they traded and signed Matthew Stafford, and last season proved that was the only thing missing. Their defense is scary good with the best player in the NFL leading the way in Aaron Donald. And did we mention they added Bobby Wagner to replace the loss of Von Miller? And of course, you cannot overlook the best corner in the league in Jalen Ramsey. Sean McVay has proven he's one of the best coaches in the league as well. The one big loss this offseason, however, was the retirement of left tackle Andrew Whitworth. Adding Allen Robinson gives Stafford another weapon on offense, and getting Cam Akers back from an Achilles injury solidifies the running game. Look at all that talent, and I just now am getting to the Super Bowl MVP in Cooper Kupp. Don't forget, still could bring back OBJ. Although the Rams have a tough schedule opening versus Buffalo and later in the season traveling to New Orleans and Kansas City, it won't matter. And there's no reason, unless Stafford goes down, for this team not to run it back and return to the Super Bowl. The Rams win the West again and possibly the NFC as well. There you have it, the Keeping It Real Sports NFC West preview.
There you go. That concludes our NFL preview, man. Man, great job, man. That was fun, man. That was real fun.
I enjoyed that. I like how we split it up too. You took my division, I took yours, and everything.
Yeah.
So that way it didn't seem like we were homers.
Yeah. You know what else
process.
You know what else is fun?
What's that?
No one has ever done that. No one has ever done that in the history of Dota.
Are you serious? Are you serious? Are you serious?
Are you serious?
Steve Taylor, this might be the most obvious "Are you serious?" we've ever done. Okay, when I throw this graphic up, you're gonna sit back and jump in your seat. Okay, $750 million in a lawsuit. Are you serious? Come on, Patrick Reed. He's suing Brandel Chamblee and the Golf Channel for $750 million in a defamation of character. This guy, of any player on the PGA Tour, should not even be thinking about something like this. You know why? Peter Kostis, who used to be on CBS, has caught him cheating in a tournament multiple times. Okay? What Brandel Chamblee said was that he was taking the act of a murderer by going to Live Golf, meaning because of who's behind Live Golf. It had nothing to do with the personal attack on Patrick Reed. Steve, I can't even believe this guy's thinking about this. Everybody out there, Golf Digest, Sports Illustrated, the Golf Channel, NBC, you name it, they all think he's ludicrous for even considering something like this. $750 million because somebody called you a name? Are you serious?
Yeah, man. Yeah. Some people, man, they're nervous. Some people. But man, I tell you, man, wow. That's, man, that just so we have so much fun, man. I mean, it's 47 in the books, man.
I know.
47 in, man. You know.
Man, we
Can't
got
wait till next week.
High school football starting, college football preview next week. It's only going to get better, folks. It's only going to get better.
Absolutely, man. So make sure you tune in next week for the college football show. Make sure you like, you subscribe, hit that button right there. Right there. Hit that button. Okay. And until next week, we wish you love
and peace.
Peace.